Hey everyone, so we're back for part 2 of this PC build. I've got Brian from BPS Customs with me again.
Hello.
We did part 1 where we took way too long getting blocks on the Teslas.
There were a few problems. We resolved them though.
All of the problems were us.
Yes,
but,
oh no, entirely.
But they're good to go. And now we're doing loop layout. We kind of discussed about we're gonna use this Gigabyte TRX 40, we're gonna use the Lian 011 XL, and we stopped there. So we're gonna start with loop layout in order, and then go through some of the fittings he's got and I've got, maybe get a quick education on them.
A little bit.
And go forward from there. Before that, this video is brought to you by Linode Cloud Computing. We've trusted Linode as our web host since 2012 and recommend it for excellent technical and customer support, reliable uptime, and a clean interface. Aside from cloud hosting, Linode.com recently added GPU hosting plans for machine learning and neural net use, built with RTX 6000 GPUs and 10 gigabit per second network speeds. They're also starting to deploy EPYC CPUs in their servers. Sign up for Linode.com Cloud Computing with code GNEXUS20 for a $20 credit, or click the link in the description below to visit linode.com/gamersnexus. All right, so here's the system. It's the Lian 011 XL. We reviewed it on the channel separately, but we did it with our standard review, and really this case, although it works well with air, it's kind of built for liquid cooling. So let's first talk about some of the aspects, Brian, that you've got a bit more experience with. Mm-hmm. When we reviewed it, we looked at it from our standard review methodology for cases, which does not account for things like installing radiators everywhere. Yeah. And we liked this case for a few reasons. You want to talk about some of the, I guess, I want to use the word fitment, but I get yelled at in the comments when I use that word.
Fitment is a great word. Let's talk about that.
Okay.
So yeah, one of the things, I'm actually, coincidence, doing also a build in this case, and one of the reasons that I chose it was because you have so many options for radiator placement.
Right.
And the spacing of the motherboard versus where you mount the fans and the radiators is unlike almost anything else out there, because you can mount an EATX board in here and still have room to run your cables, to run your tubing.
Right, and we can demo that too.
Yeah, we could demo that. So you're not interfering with anything here, and you still, I mean, this is an enormous board.
Yes.
And yeah, and you could still run like a triple rad setup if you want.
One kind of concern here though is the 24 pins right angle. You talked about this in the last video in part 1. So getting it through here, we'll just have to do it in the correct order.
Yeah, well,
it'll be fine.
Once we get this in here, especially if we're using just stock cables, not cable extensions, because they tend to be stiffer, the stock cables bend pretty easily, and we'll be able to route it down here without really any problem. And luckily, this case allows you to mount fans on the back side, so we're not going to have to worry about an additional fan, I don't know, spacing issue.
Yeah, if we had fans here, it'd be
it would be a little bit of a problem. Yeah. So that's the plan right now, is to use one of these use a rad on the back wall, 360, with the fans on the underside, and then we're also going to plan to use.
I also like how this section is recessed, so that, like you're saying, it does get it below the board. Yeah,
and I mean, I know aesthetics is not your primary concern, but like when you're laying out a system like this and you're just looking at it like that looks pretty cool too. Like a lot of people doing custom water cooling are in it for the aesthetics. So, and then we have a second 360 up top, and the spacing on this is just crazy. So we shouldn't have any problem here with VRM height clearance.
No, not at all.
And then we did consider doing a third rad at the bottom.
Yeah, that would go down here, and we don't really have a great way to rotate
to demo that. Yeah, but like there's another space for a rad at the bottom, and if for the kind of setup that we're doing right now, we could try to move. There we go. For the kind of setup that we're doing right now, it wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense, and I don't know that we necessarily need it anyway. So we're going to run with two 360s, and I think we'd be all right.
We'll definitely be fine thermally. So for people wondering about thermal concerns or anything, the video cards, top of my head, should be about, it's either 200 or 250 watts each. We got 2 of those, so max maybe 500 watts or so. They're not overclockable. It's completely locked down by NVIDIA, so we don't have to worry about that. And then the CPU is a 3970X, so if it's stock, we're completely fine. Couple hundred watts, and if it's overclocked, we're still, I mean, still 400 watts max. So yeah. You
basically have an entire radiator reserved for the CPU and an entire radiator for the 2 GPUs.
Yeah,
because
which is plenty.
Yeah, a high-end 360 millimeter radiator can usually handle about 500 watts.
And for reference for people, with our review, we were working with a 360. It was the Enermax CLC Lictech, one of the ones that we fixed. So we were working with a 360 CLC, and that allowed us to get up to 4.4-ish with the 3970X. So with, I mean, 2 of them, even with the video cards there.
Yeah, you should be more than enough.
And a better pump too.
Yep.
So yeah, we're in good shape for that. All right, cool. So what's the next step? What do we want to do?
We want to start populating this with hardware, put the motherboard in, get the GPU situated, because we could connect them up with the terminal so we know exactly where they're going to be.
Oh, let's grab the bucket of fittings too and talk about those.
Oh, absolutely.
I see we've got the same storage style.
Yeah. So we just wanted to take a quick look at fittings here. I mean, I know it's not hot topic, but we did actually talk about potentially doing hard tubing, potentially using barbs, how we wanted to do this.
Well, and also there's a lot of things I specialize in, but water cooling parts not really one of them. So when we get all the different types of fittings in from companies who want to send us stuff, half the time I'm like, I don't even know what I'm going to use this for.
Yeah.
Like, it's not something I work with every day. So
fair enough. Usually the ones that I'm getting in are for a purpose, but they all end up in this. So yes, we are basically in the same situation.
So let's pull a few of these types out. You want to just pick some random ones? I guess?
Sure.
And then I'll show these two. They're not really, you know what those are, but we'll talk with those. That's still got water in it.
So for a soft tubing build, like we talked about, we're gonna go with these soft tube compression fittings. Whether or not we use these exact ones, I don't know. We'll figure that out in a minute when we talk about like our tubing.
Right.
But these are the ones from the Corsair Hydro X stuff, and they're basically a barb with a fitting over top that just compresses the tube and makes sure that it goes nowhere.
Yeah, and I'll show this too. My fingertips are all messed up right now because of these things. So we use these a lot for the ZMT tubing. That it's the black rubber. It's like, I think it gets as big as 19 millimeter outer diameter.
Yeah.
So we use these for that stuff for when we want something that's fairly condensation resistant for chilled water. And these, I mean, they're just clamps, but they're the tightest like clamps I've ever worked with.
Yeah.
And these ones also. So those are your uglier alternatives to.
So using the compression collar, basically.
Yeah.
So you're putting that over a barb. To hold the tube in place.
Yeah, so we'll use these for it. And that's just because, I mean, you can't get one of those fat tubes on there.
Yeah.
It just won't fit.
Yep. But if we were doing hard tube, it's the same concept, except there's no inner barb for a hard tube fitting. And you see there's an O-ring on the outside and then the compression collar on top.
Right, yeah.
So you're basically...
So do you just seat the tube all the way down?
You have to seat it all the way down because there's O-rings inside, and that's what creates the seal.
Right.
And then this is going to clamp onto this O-ring and create pressure on the outside. So
do you ever, if you reuse a fitting a bunch of times for something, do you ever replace the O-rings?
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
How frequently do you do that?
Not a lot. I mean, they're rubber. As long as they're not chipped or broken in some way, then they're fine.
Okay.
But I mean, you do get occasionally like they get brittle.
Right.
So you don't
start breaking apart.
Yeah, and you should be, if you're reusing fittings, you should be checking them like before you're installing them. So if I had used this a bunch and I looked at this O-ring and it was a mess, I'm not going to want to put this back in my system.
Right.
So, and usually when you buy these, they will come with extra O-rings. At least some brands do. But they're cheap enough where if you needed to replace them, you certainly could.
Right.
So
and also a lot of this stuff you can buy at local hardware stores.
Yeah, it's a lot of it's amazing how standardized a lot of these sizing fittings are. So you could use this with like copper tube.
Well, as an example, this is sold by EK, but they don't even bother to rebrand this.
Yeah.
This is from Calder. Is it Calder? I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation, but it's a medical supply brand.
Yeah.
Is what it is. So this is a quick release. They use it for medical supply. And EK sells it. They don't make it, but they don't even rebrand it. You know?
Those are super convenient too.
Yeah, so a lot of this stuff is pretty standard, like you're saying.
Yeah, and then I mean, we might use some angled fittings. So depending on how exactly we want to run our tube, just to try to keep it as straight as possible.
Right.
One of the things you don't want to do with soft tube is kink it, right?
Right.
So anytime you're adding additional bends that that are a little tighter, you want to try to maybe use an angled fitting to reduce some of the stress on the tube. So, you know, we have our 90-degree angled fitting. We have our 45-degree angled fitting. This is a double 45, which does all kinds of funky things. And then this is just a splitter. Yeah.
And we've got these too if you want to use these. This is from China. It's from PC Cooler. Cooler air cooler that instead of a copper heat pipe, it's a copper pipe that water goes through the air cooler, and that's the barb that it came with.
This is enormously interesting to me.
Yeah, it leaked a lot.
I wouldn't understand why.
We found that out firsthand. Yes, not the first choice, but okay, and then.
Yeah, so we'll probably end up going with a bunch of these compression type soft tube fittings.
Do you think the EK ones, or do you have a preference?
I don't have a preference. When it comes to compression, like soft tube compression, they're all pretty good.
Pretty much
yeah, there's not a lot of difference between them.
So I have a bunch of these if we want to use mine.
Sure.
If you're trying to be trying to make a back alley deal and dump a bunch of your inventory, we can use some of yours.
You said you're paying me for all this stuff, right?
Just trying to pull some fans that look the same, at least one set of 3 each that are the same.
Yeah, cool.
So there's these 3 ML120 Pros that we have.
Okay.
And I think these are all identical.
We could plug it up and just check it really quick.
I'm gonna plug it in right now.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't even used these. We used to use the older version of these.
Get his hair blowing in the breeze.
Yes, this is our current 3175X test system. I need to stand this way so the mic isn't getting hit by wind. This is our 3175X test system. We have like 1.54 amp fans hooked up, so it's like 18 watts or something. And it's overclocked. So I'm just gonna plug it into that Dominus board and
Success.
yeah. Although it is definitely picking up some RPM from the wind coming off of those.
We should consider installing, like stacking them, like the heavy duty fans, and then on top of these fans, so it runs faster.
You just burn out all the motors, right? Cool.
Do you care if it's loud?
I turn it down in BIOS if I care. I mean, yes, but I'll just go to BIOS and cut the speed.
Yeah. Let's get the motherboard in here first and get the necessary cabling up to the motherboard before we start putting in the rest. Do you want me just to start on that? So this actually does something. What is that? So this is we're gonna plug our front panels into this, and it actually, a lot of motherboards include this.
I see. Now.
But it usually will plug directly into the motherboard.
What is that for?
That is a thing that I don't know. It is a noise sensor.
Okay.
It is a noise detection header. So maybe you connect it to like an LED, and then when there is noise, it lights up, and when there is not noise, it does not light up. What do you think about that?
I think I could use my ears to figure out if there's noise.
Yeah, especially if you're in that room with the... Oh, is that the noise detector? We found the noise detector. I don't know if this build is going the way you had thought it was going to go with me here.
I had no plan.
But I apologize in advance.
For the outcome?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, here's some right here. Is that the same as what you have?
Yes. I'm gonna close my eyes so I don't get dizzy.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, that's actually easier if you lower it. Oh, you're gonna wait? You wait till I'm screwing?
Yep.
Mid screw. If I pass out, it's on you. I'm not gonna pass out on you. It's your fault. That's what I'm saying. We could plug it in later, right? So it's a lot easier to move around without the power supply in it.
Yeah. Just route the cables.
Yeah.
Which ones do you we should do?
The EPS.
Through here or through the next one?
That doesn't matter. Up here is fine.
Those ones have to go into the video card because they have this removed.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me.
And then I guess the video card terminates on the side of it instead of the top.
Yeah, so they'll come out through there. Yeah. Here. All right. So we'll figure out the rest of the cabling later, as long as we have those hooked up and routed.
Yeah.
And we could work around them when we're putting the loop in. So we could even use the Corsair rad here because it's thinner.
Yep. As long as there's clearance on the other side. That seems fine.
That seems fine to me.
This thing catches in here sometimes when you're removing it.
I've always had issues like making sure that's properly in the rails and then pushing it down far enough.
Yeah.
How's that look? Spicy? It's a pretty slick looking block. It kind of fits in.
Yeah, not bad. I'm glad we took the LEDs out.
Yeah. Good. So I'm going to mount the pump res.
Okay.
And actually should go this way. because we're going to mount this in the case and then screw it in from the back.
Yeah, that makes sense. For the parts we have here, we have a water-cooled heat killer Threadripper block that's crazy dense and all nickel-plated while offering full coverage of the IHS. We have a water-cooled glass reservoir that they sent over as well that looks really nice for the build. And we're going to just figure out what radiators to use as we go. Same for the fans. We'll just kind of pick those as we go through the build process. For the Teslas, we're using the EK Titan V blocks that we already had, but we have a modification for clearance of the 8-pin EPS power. We talked about that in the last video. It's the same PCB, so everything fits other than the power header, and that's easy enough to accommodate. So, by the way, that's what I was talking about earlier.
Oh, that was over there?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That is bizarre.
Yeah. And we sunk it in the ultrasonic cleaner for like 3 hours.
Yeah. Was this also black? Did it clean this?
Yeah, it was. It did clean that, yeah. But all this stuff seems plated. But the rest of it was also black, and that got cleaned off.
Huh.
So
I'm
actually not sure what that is.
I was thinking it could be a height thing, but if that also cleaned, is it? I mean, if you possible, like leave it in for longer and try.
Maybe. I tried scrubbing it with a brush a bit too. That didn't seem to do anything.
Yeah.
I think your vinegar or lemon
juice. Yeah. Try it. I mean, that's not a super powerful solvent, but it usually works pretty well. The acidity helps.
I'm also not certain how much it affects performance. I would imagine a bit, but being that this is on a competitive system, a couple degrees will matter.
Yeah.
If this were just going in a normal system, I might not care as much. But
yeah.
Yeah, it looks pretty beat up. That's from being in the ultrasonic cleaner.
Oh.
The coloration on the back.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty interesting. Have you used that for anything else, the ultrasonic cleaner?
Yeah, motherboards.
Oh, after they're Vaseline?
Yeah.
How does that look? Do you care?
I think that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. As long as it clears, that's all I'm looking for.
Yeah. You know, unfortunately, radiator threading is not standardized.
Yeah, it's crazy to me, actually.
You know, this fell out, so we're going to need longer ones.
Is it normally like things just slightly not fitting quite the same way as?
Or I have to drill an extra hole, or I ordered too few fittings, or, you know.
Well, that's why I ordered 4.
No, 8. 8 terminals.
Can't have too few then. We
can
have 16
if you're going for
cards.
16 GPU setup, then you did good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have a case that has 16 PCIe slot covers?
I'm working on it.
Okay.
I've contacted a manufacturer.
And did they say?
They said,
go fuck yourself.
So 1 rad in.
Nice.
And
it looks pretty good internally.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Are you seating this forward, like this direction, as opposed to?
Oh yeah. You want it forward, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, we only got 1 rail up there anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. You want the fans internal?
Yep.
Pushing up. Okay. All right. Sure.
Yeah.
Should I just start screwing these in?
Just as is. As far as you can.
I call you up tomorrow when you're on your way home. Hey, Brian. It's,
I got a problem. Can you come back, please?
It's leaking. That's hitting something. I know what's happening.
It shouldn't be.
It's the that lip. That lip is clipping it.
I guess we gotta start all over again with the screw hunt. Great.
Cool. Put that one in there. Yes.
So untwist this because we want these fed all the way through.
Okay.
Even though we're not gonna use them.
Then we'll just cut them on the backside.
Just exacto them right off. Leave the wires exposed. Actually, wouldn't do anything. They're not energized.
Yeah.
You got 6?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
All right, pull it. Keep going a little. You should be able to pull more.
That's it. I'm giving it all she's got, Captain.
Yeah, hit this with a screwdriver too, because I can't do this with my goofy ass thumb. Is this sheared off?
A bit.
What do you do around here?
Oh, that was nice.
Did you get that?
No.
Oh.
I dropped the screwdriver and he caught it.
Reenactment. Ooh.
That's pretty good reenactment.
So this is gonna, okay.
You need another 90?
Yeah, I will, but
Okay.
I'm just trying to visualize this.
It's an artist.
Seriously, this is the longest part of it. It's like trying to figure out what to do. So this can go just straight in here. Okay.
Yeah, that looks good.
This is going to come from the CPU. So what I wanted to do was, I have extensions, put an extension on here and then a 45.
Okay.
So that's going to come down like this.
I see, gotcha.
And then this will take care of itself. We might need to put a 90 on this in.
Okay.
And
then
a 45 on the out.
Not using black at this point. I don't have enough.
I might have some. So unfortunately, the nickel fittings are not going to match with the.
Yeah.
Unless we just do all nickel.
You can do all
which
nickel.
is fine.
That's fine.
So yeah, so that's going to allow us to kind of angle down towards the CPU.
Right.
And then
you've got this right angle.
This is a 90 here, which I don't know if the camera can catch, but there's a 90 here, so we're going to go straight back into this rad. We're going to want to. Oh, geez. Yeah, so then probably want a 90 up here. Actually, I'm going to put an extension on that too.
Okay.
So the reason I wanted to use this instead of a regular one is that it brings it out further.
I gotcha.
Right? So even if this isn't going to work, we could put a little extension on the end.
Okay.
And so these tubes aren't, or the fittings aren't bashing into each other.
Right. So you've got one on the table in front of you too. That might be yours.
This is mine. I put this here, yeah. So yeah, so we do it like this.
Okay.
So that.
Is that going into an acrylic thread?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you're tightening down these fittings, I mean, to be honest, there is a little room for error, but you're basically looking to compress the O-ring so that you're creating the seal. But if you go too far, especially into these acrylic blocks,
and especially if you're using a tool, it's way easier. Like if it's one of the fittings that supports an Allen key.
Yeah, like Primo Chill's fittings have those. I mean, even the EK stuff, you could use with this Allen key. And if you do go too tight, you can easily crack the block. So just be careful, torque it down till it feels nice and solid, and then stop.
Right.
Because there is definitely temptation to be like, I don't want this to leak, I'm just going to crank it.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks good for soft tubing. I think the way you've laid it out, it should keep everything should keep it pretty straight.
Yeah, and then you're going to have some slack between so the two tubes that are connecting to the CPU block are going to come to here, and you're going to have one from here. So you're going to be able to unscrew it and basically kind of fold it back this way.
Right.
And you'll have access to the CPU.
That sounds good. Brian ended up routing the tubes with some extra slack in the CPU block for easier removability, but other than that, everything's really tightly held together. We've been running this machine at time of recording this voiceover clip for a couple of weeks now, and we haven't had any leaks or water issues, so everything's worked out well. The vertical soft tube stays fairly straight and looks like hard tubing to most people walking by the system, since Brian thought so carefully about how to run it. And the rightmost radiator connection was actually done with all fittings in a way that just looks nice and is less prone to kinking than soft tubing would be with such a short run. We also ended up foregoing the terminal, so we could get the P4000 in the middle of the cards. It looks better with the hard tubing connection anyway, but I do have 8 extra terminals now. Everything with the build came out excellent, and we're all thrilled with how it works and how it looks. So we'll check back with a final video for performance analysis if you want to see how this thing actually runs for things like Premiere or Blender or thermals. All right, so we worked on this through the night for a bit and I just took B-roll while Brian finished it up. The build's looking really good. We have a couple things that we changed, some things that you kind of made some conscious decisions on too.
Yeah, as I was putting the loop together, there were a couple things that I really felt weren't working quite right. So that's kind of why the almost always the longest part of doing something like this is literally just trying to figure out how you want to run your loop.
Yeah.
So choosing the components is usually pretty easy. Putting a radiator in takes no time, but then when you actually have to figure out where the tubes are going,
and figure out your
loop order and all that, like it takes a little while.
So the The biggest change is probably the lack of the terminal. Should point that out right
yeah,
away.
this terminal right here we were going to use.
Yeah.
And then we figured out that we should have bought the other one.
Yeah, the X3 is what we needed. Not
Yeah,
the
this
X2.
is the dual, and then I guess the triple slot would have been what we needed, but that's okay. We just ended up going with a parallel setup for running in between the GPUs, and
it looks better honestly that way. Like it looks better than the terminal would have.
I think so. I always like the look of the two tubes running between them. This is a cleaner solution, and less likely to cause problems if you're going to have a problem. But I mean, that does look a little bit better, which I know is the focus for you.
No.
Purely aesthetics.
And we did leak test it, so I let it run all night.
Yeah.
And no issues. I filled the loop to the top. You had left maybe a 2-inch gap at the top.
Yeah, I wanted it to bleed a little bit,
Yeah.
and then like you filled it up before you left last night, right?
Yeah, so it seems good. It's not leaking.
There were a couple other things, like we had to put the Quadro in between those two GPUs. I wanted to put it at the bottom, but the way the tubing runs at the bottom along with the fittings down there, it wouldn't have fit. We also have, over here, I did a whole setup with only fittings in between the rads, and that was done just for spacing issues. There wasn't a lot of space there to fit tubing plus collars plus barbs. Right. It just wouldn't have worked out all that well.
Well, and then you were setting up it was a whole lot of 45s in here between the GPU and the CPU. It was going to be a really straight run though for the tube.
That's what. So initially, yes, you're right, and I wanted it to be straight and clean, and you're like, well, I might need a little more slack.
Yeah.
So that's perfectly reasonable, and to be honest, the way it turned out,
looks good.
Looks good anyway.
Yeah. It's pretty. It bends cleanly. It's not kinking, and it's also not excessive for slack, so makes it easy for us to pull the CPU out when we need to do testing with it. And any other changes that were made?
I don't think we made any other really big changes. We did post it last night, and it does post.
Yeah, it booted. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, although I haven't booted it with the Teslas, but I do know that they work together in a system. I mean, work in this one.
You had to make a change in the BIOS, and we were able to do that with no problem. So I'm pretty confident that everything's going to work.
Yeah, it needs, for anyone wondering, it needs 4G decoding enabled for these. It's too much memory, so board doesn't know what to do with it otherwise.
Yeah, which is something that I literally had no idea about, and you're like, hey, we got to change something. So.
Yeah, so if you happen to follow this, if you're like, I need a guide for 2 Tesla V100s.
Like most people out there.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty common.
I think so.
Normal build. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's going to go right in the SEO. Just for
yeah, that'll get a lot of views. Tesla V100 build. So I don't know. Yeah, it came together really well. As of right now, filming cable management needs to be done, but we'll do that. By the time you see this, there'll have been nice B-roll shots already. So
yeah, we put everything together in such a way that the cable managing is going to be fine. That's not going to be an issue at all. But I mean, yeah, it came out great, and I'm happy with it.
Yeah, job well done.
Yeah, you too.
So I didn't do anything, but I filmed parts of what you did.
You filmed really well.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, so that's it for the build. If you want to check out more of this type of stuff, go to BPS Customs on YouTube, and I'll link it below. And I guess the next step's going to be for us to actually do some testing with it. So we'll probably do some Blender benchmarks and see how it does versus just a CPU. Everyone's seen our Blender charts for CPUs, so we'll add one in with a couple of GPUs as well, see how it does. And subscribe to Brian. Thank you, Brian, for helping out.
Yeah.
No one's going to be able to see us shake hands, but we did.
That's okay. We did. We promised.
Yeah, we did. And we'll see you all next time.
See you guys.